Hello, and welcome again to Let's Play Low Poly Modeling Myself. I'm Valentino, and in this video, we are going to go over our reference that we're going to use to model our base mesh, and we're going to start modeling and maybe even finish modeling our base mesh. So, to give you an idea of what I just did, in the last video I told you I was going to collect reference images and I was going to clean them up. That way they can be more presentable, because honestly, reference is usually nude. And if you have a problem seeing nudes, you're going to see them. Accept it and move on. But if you're in a workplace where you can't see them, I edited this photo a little bit so you could see where I made him like little black underwear. So it'll be safe to use, and I'll try and make it readily available for you all to download. Also, when I got the images, the two poses actually didn't line up whatsoever. So as you can see right here, I added some guides at very specific points that really wouldn't change much based on him lifting his shoulders up, like he did right here. If you know anything about anatomy, you know that when you move your shoulders up, your skin's going to stretch in different ways. So notice right here, the nipple doesn't really line up, and that's because it's being stretched upwards with the shoulder. But something that wasn't going to change was his height. He had pretty good posture, so I just lined up the top of his head. Also, I lined up his big toe. Notice I didn't line up the bottom of the feet as the pictures were, because we have something called depth, and his little toe is not going to line up anyways. It's going to sit farther back, and in this one, closer to the camera. But the big toe should be lined up in the same area approximately, because it's the closest to the camera, which means we can use it as a level. The kneecaps, as you can see, we just go straight into the center, and they line up pretty well. Granted, his posture isn't exactly perfect, but I gotta say, did a pretty good job as a model. His belly button lines up. And remember last video I was telling you that everyone has a unique body. And this is pretty clear on this guy. I mean, he's really thin, he's a ginger, and has really pale skin. He really wouldn't be a good reference model for me, right? Well, we're not really using him as a reference model for me, we're using him as a reference for our base model. He has pretty good proportions, and I like that, and that would be pretty good for a generic male character. Also, he did a fantastic job making these poses, so it's going to make it modeling really easy. And that's what I want. If I got a significantly larger male model, or a really fit male model, it would probably give me a base mesh that would not really be very helpful for me. I'm not really a muscular guy. I'm a little bit flabby and chubby, actually. And although this guy's really thin, that bulky muscle will get in the way, and I could always make myself look bigger. So a nice thin guy is a really good way to start off a base mesh. It's also good for women if for some reason you can't find nude females on the internet. And this is because you can add breasts later. And although I highly suggest getting a female model because they're just shaped differently, if all else fails, use a male. I mean, it's what they did in olden times. So I'm going to place this in Maya, and I'm going to pause because that's a little bit of a process and it differs from package to package. And then we're going to start making our base model. So before I begin, I actually remembered something really important. I'm not 100% sure if you can actually do this in Max, since I haven't used Max in a few versions now. But if you're using Maya, and actually for most programs, if you can do this, do it. When you first make a scene, save your scene. And if you're using Maya, make sure to set a project. Name your scene something easy you'll remember, and then save. But if you're using Maya specifically, and I know it's a hotkey in Max, make sure that under your options you have incremental save turned on. This way, if you make a change, such as, let's make a cylinder right here, and we're like, oh, that's good. We just made something really interesting. Now we're going to save, and I'm going to press Control S. And now if we go here and we go to Open, it's going to open up an incremental save folder, and it's going to have our entire history of saves. This is really helpful, especially if your scene gets corrupted. So make sure to do this. Here we go, and as you can see, I have my reference images up. They're inside Maya, and oh, whoops, let me save. There we go. So right now we're ready to make the base mesh, and it's actually much simpler than most people try to make this out to be. Since we have our images set up and we can use the orthographic views to really position anything we want, we can just start modeling. So if I were to say make a cube, where are you, cube? There you go. And we can just start at the torso. And the easiest way to do that is just select the cube, move it up to the torso. And look, it fits. We don't have to worry about it being too exact, because remember, this is just going to be a generic base mesh, and we don't want the unique features of this man. I'm going to extrude again, and hopefully we're going to get the bottom of it. I'll go this down to about his hip bone. And we're going to come up here and select this area. And I'm going to extrude that, or at least move it down, and we'll get the nipple area. And we're going to extrude again, and we'll go up to the top of the shoulders. So let's take a look at our orthographic views right now. If I turn on X-ray shading, or I can see through both materials now. And since I really only need a vague approximation of where his body is in order to model, we can do that right now. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to snap all these vertices to the center of the grid, which I hope will be the center of his body, because we really only want to model one side, and we'll just mirror the rest. And I know I mentioned again that the body is unique and one side doesn't look like the rest, but we're making a generic base mesh, so it's okay. So I'm going to delete those faces, and we're going to have to do it continuously as we model. And I'm just going to move these extra vertices straight to where his body is. Nice and simple, right? Nothing too worried about. Move these down even further. Move this to about the deltoid area, and keep this centered right there. Let's go into the other view. Again, we're going to go into X-ray mode. And if your modeling package doesn't have an X-ray mode, just try and make a transparent material, and that'll work just the same. I'm doing a drag selection because I'm getting multiple vertices, and I'm moving them all here. Right now, I just want to make a blocky figure. I'm not worried too much. And I'm going to do this for the entire body before we start detailing. So I'm going to pause real quick. Again, I'm going to do it for the entire body. You're going to see that this is just a really generic blocky figure. And then we're going to continue. So another thing I wanted to bring up before I finish modeling this really, really basic, I'll say, block guy, is make sure when you're modeling to check all your different orthographic views to make sure everything's fitting in right. But don't just stay constrained to them. Every now and then you're going to have to pop back out. Like, I really didn't have really good reference for the side of the arm. But I'm aware that arms are thin and how they're shaped. This just comes with experience. So, make sure to check all sides and all angles, and just make sure, hey, does this silhouette look like a human being? Right now, it's getting there. We'll talk about more of that later. Another thing is also model with different instances or clones of your model. Like, right now, I have an instance. It's like a duplicated copy of the other side. And if I modify it, as you can see, it's going to change the other side. This is really useful when you're making a base model or just even starting the geometry of a human being. You can instantly see how the entire full body is going to look like. And as you can see, our base model's getting there. I mean, it's only about not even 50% of the way there, but we're working. So as you can see, I went ahead and I blocked out the rest of the model. We have the start of a head here. Notice it's pretty high poly, and it's kind of just a mush of shape. And we're going to be detailing that out a little bit more. You'll notice that this is really, really simple right now, and it's just a very basic approximation of what a human being may look like. And you can see this, if we duplicate it, it pretty much has the silhouette of a human. Like, if you saw this in a dark alley at night, well, you probably wouldn't be frightened of it. It kind of has a bubble butt, and its head's leaning a bit too forward, but hey, you would at least think it was humanoid. Congratulations, we just succeeded on making a humanoid figure. It's still really blocking. If we look from the top, you can totally see it. This would probably be like, I don't know, a very, very last gen game. Maybe like prior to Half-Life. Probably like Oh geez, maybe Quake 1. There's probably too many polys for Quake 1. Yeah, the head's totally way too many polys for Quake 1. But as you can see, we're getting there, and we're going to start finishing up the base mesh now by detailing it. I'm going to look over the model real quick and see what would be a good area to start so I could show you guys an example of detailing. And then we're going to go headlong into the base mesh. So I just want to go over real quick what just happened. While I was doing a few additional details and finding out where would be a great way to show you guys, some quick techniques, I did something that ended up corrupting a little bit of the model history, and I wasn't able to undo. Didn't save. Again, reminder, always save your progress. Remember, learn from my mistake.